What's up guys, it's Matt here, and in today's video, I'm going to be sharing my predictions and full card breakdown for UFC 311. UFC 311 will be taking place in Inglewood, California on January 18th, and this is going to be a huge pay-per-view to kick off 2025. UFC 311 is going to be an insanely stacked card. It features 2 title fights in the lightweight and bantamweight divisions, along with number 1 contender fights and fights that feature promising up-and-coming prospects like Peyton Talbott and Bogdan Guskov. The card also features some of my personal favorite fighters like Yuri Prochazka and Kevin Holland. It's looking like this is going to be a really fun card, and as a UFC fan, I'm looking forward to watching on January 18th. Before we get into my predictions, I just want to say that I would really appreciate it if you guys hit that subscribe button so that I can keep producing this type of content. I believe more than 99% of you guys aren't subscribed to the channel, so I would really appreciate it if you guys hit that subscribe button. But anyways, without further ado, let's get into my official predictions and full card breakdown for UFC 311. Opening up the card, we have a flyweight bout between Tagir Ulanbekov versus Clayton Carpenter, and for this fight I'll be picking Tagir Ulanbekov by decision. When you analyze this matchup, Tagir Ulanbekov, he's gonna have the superior wrestling and grappling, and he has a great ability to control his opponents. Tagir Ulanbekov also has very good clinch work, and he can use this to dictate the pace of this fight. And I believe that he's going to be able to nullify the striking of Clayton Carpenter. We know that Clayton Carpenter, he is a very aggressive striker, and I believe that Tagir, he's going to be able to just adjust his style to adapt to that type of aggressiveness that Clayton Carpenter will be displaying when they meet in the cage. Another reason why I'm picking Tagir Ulanbekov to beat Clayton Carpenter is that Tagir, he's a part of Team Khabib, and I just think that this card is going to elevate a lot of the fighters that are part of Team Khabib, and I think that Tagir Ulanbekov, he's going to rise to the occasion and win this fight. Next fight on the card, we have a bantamweight bout between Ricky Turcios versus Bernardo Sopaj, and I'll be picking Bernardo Sopaj to win this fight by a decision. I just think that Bernardo Sopaj, he just has the skills to just simply outpoint Ricky Turcios and just win by a decisive decision victory, because Sopaj, his striking is very technical and very crisp. He also mixes in combinations. He also is very well-rounded in the grappling and the clinch game. I just think that those factors combining together just makes Bernardo Sopaj a difficult opponent for Ricky Turcios to beat. So that is my reasons why I believe that Bernardo Sopaj can just beat Ricky Turcios by like a 30-27 decision. I can see Bernardo Sopaj dropping a round or so if he gets a little bit sloppy. However, I'm still picking Bernardo Sopaj to win this by like a 30-27 decision or a 29-28 decision. Next fight in the card is another bantamweight bout between Rinya Nakamura versus Gafurov. And for this fight, I'll be picking Rinya Nakamura to win by a decision. The main reasons why I am picking Rinya Nakamura to win this fight is because Nakamura, he has the superior striking technique and he has the better precision between the two fighters. Gafurov, he is a very wild striker, so I think that Nakamura, he's going to be able to avoid those wild shots and land his own cleaner strikes. I guess what I'm trying to say is that Rinya Nakamura, he's going to be the more technical striker between the two fighters, and I think that he has the ability to outclass his opponent throughout all 3 rounds because he has very good cardio, and he's going to be able to adapt to the fighting style of his opponent because of his timing and precision. Next fight on the card, we have a women's bantamweight bout between Rosa versus Aline Perez, and I'll be picking Aline Perez to win this fight by a decision. Honestly, Aline Perez, she has a very strong grappling game and she has a good ability to control her opponent while being in dominant positions. So I believe that she's going to be able to secure a lot of control time throughout this fight, and her grappling game can neutralize the striking of Rosa. So that is why I am picking Aline Perez to win this fight by a decision. Next fight on the card, we have a lightweight bout between Grant Dawson versus Diego Ferreira, and I'll be picking Grant Dawson to win by a decision. Grant Dawson, he is a very underrated fighter in the UFC. He has a very good record of 22 wins and only 2 losses, and I think that he's going to walk away with the win against Diego Ferreira. This is mainly because of how good of a wrestler Grant Dawson is. And Diego Ferreira, in his past fights, he has struggled against wrestlers who pressured him. So if Grant Dawson, if he can come out with a more wrestling heavy approach, I believe that he'll be able to smother and control Diego Ferreira and win by a decision. If Grant Dawson can successfully come into this fight with a wrestling-centric approach, I think that this will be able to stifle the striking of Diego Ferreira, and if he can control him on the ground, that will also stifle the jiu-jitsu of Diego Ferreira as well. So that is why I am picking Grant Dawson to win this fight by a decision. Next fight on the card, we have a middleweight bout between Zach Reese versus Tsarukyan Dumas. I've actually watched a lot of Tsarukyan Dumas' fights live. I remember when he got his hair grabbed by that dude who fights out in Morocco. I forgot his name, but the ref didn't even call that hair grab as a foul. And I remember that just being a very controversial moment. But from the fights I did watch live, Tsarukyan Dumas, he is a very good fighter. However, I'm going to be picking Zach Reese to win this fight by KO. Tsarukyan Dumas, he is a great fighter, but unfortunately, he is not among the elite in the middleweight division. He is kind of like a journeyman, and I just think that Zach Reese, he has the better striking. He's very heavy-handed, and he's going to be able to land crisp punches, and I think that he's going to be able to KO Tsarukyan Dumas within 1 round. Honestly, to me, Tsarukyan Dumas' only path to victory is going to be through the wrestling and grappling. If Tsarukyan, if he can successfully control him and take him down, he needs to chain wrestle for his life. If he can do that, I can see Tsarukyan Dumas winning by like a decision. However, if we're talking about the most lethal fighter who's going to be in this matchup, it's definitely going to be Zach Reese. And I don't think that Tsarukyan Dumas has the necessary defense and grappling prowess to not get KO'd by Zach Reese. Next fight on the card, we have a heavyweight bout between Jailton Almeida versus Sergey Spivac. And I'll be picking Jailton Almeida to win by a submission. In his last fight, Sergey Spivac, he showed that he is a very competent grappler. He submitted Marcin Tybura by a armbar, which is very rare in the heavyweight division. However, I think that Jailton Almeida, he's a former light heavyweight, and he's going to have that lighter man skill. Jailton Almeida, he has shown numerous times that he's able to just out-grapple and toss these heavyweights around. And even though he got stopped by Curtis Blades, because to be honest, Jailton Almeida, he doesn't have no finishing potential on the feet. So when he's dealing with the heavier hitters in the heavyweight division, that will be a problem. However, I think that Jailton Almeida in this matchup, he's just going to be able to not ragdoll Sergey Spivac, but I believe that he's going to be able to out-grapple him. And I think that he's going to be able to find a submission finish because he is a very persistent grappler. He has good cardio while grappling, and I don't think that Sergey Spivac is going to be able to keep up with the grappling of Jailton Almeida for all 3 rounds. And I think that Jailton Almeida will be getting a late round 3 submission when Sergey Spivac has kind of just tired out and just can't take the grappling pace that Jailton Almeida will be putting on Sergey Spivac in this fight. Next fight on the card will be a bantamweight bout between Peyton Talbott versus Ronnie Barcelos. And I'll be picking Peyton Talbott to win by a KO. Now, Peyton Talbott, he has very high expectations from UFC fans, and I'm one of those people who have very high expectations of Peyton Talbott. I believe that this is a serious matchup to determine if Peyton Talbott will be a part of the elite of the bantamweight division. Honestly, if you keep up with the sport, you should know that Peyton Talbott, he is a very good striker. A lot of people compare him to Sean O'Malley. He is very athletic. He has good composure in the cage while also keeping his defensive integrity while striking. And fans, they expect him to run through Ronnie Barcelos and KO him in round one. And I am one of those people who expect Peyton Talbott to KO Ronnie Barcelos in round one. Like, the UFC has promoted Peyton Talbott to be the upcoming star of the bantamweight division, and he's going to have to prove that on January 18th. Next fight on the card is a light heavyweight bout between Johnny Walker versus Bogdan Guskov. And I'll be picking Bogdan Guskov by KO. Honestly, this was a very easy fight to predict. Johnny Walker, he's a very chinny fighter. He is a wild striker as well, which doesn't work well when you don't have the best defense along with being very chinny. I agree with all the fans who are just saying that Johnny Walker, he should just move up to heavyweight and just KO the blobs in the bottom of the rankings. But anyways, Johnny Walker, he is a very chinny fighter, and Bogdan Guskov, he is a very powerful striker. So honestly, Bogdan Guskov, he is a nightmare matchup for Johnny Walker, and I believe that this fight is going to end in a very devastating KO, like many recent Johnny Walker fights. And I believe that Bogdan Guskov will KO Johnny Walker in round one. Next fight on the card, we have a fight in the UFC middleweight division between Kevin Holland versus Reinier de Ridder. And I recently talked about this upcoming fight in a previous video when I was analyzing Reinier de Ridder's potential in the UFC. And after analyzing this specific matchup, I think Reinier de Ridder will win by a submission, probably like an arm triangle or a rear naked choke. However, I don't think that this is going to be an easy fight for Reinier de Ridder, and I think that Kevin Holland is going to force him to grapple. Kevin Holland's striking is kind of underrated ever since he got lit up by Wonderboy Thompson, but Kevin Holland is a very tricky fighter to navigate on the feet because of his long reach, and I think that Reinier de Ridder is not going to be able to break through the striking of Kevin Holland, and I think that he's going to be forced to grapple. And when you analyze the matchup between these two fighters in the realm of grappling, obviously Reinier de Ridder is going to have the physicality advantage, and Reinier de Ridder is going to have the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu advantage because he is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he's going to be able to get himself into more dominant positions to secure control time and eventually submit Kevin Holland like I'm predicting. And Kevin Holland, he does have very good defensive grappling and defensive wrestling in the form of scrambles. And he also has a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. But that is where Reinier de Ridder's physicality will come in. And I think that him being the stronger, more dominant presence in the cage and in the grappling, that is going to be his key to effectively secure Kevin Holland and rack up that control time and just use his physicality to dominate him and hold him down in the wrestling. Now, going back to my first point about this matchup, I do think that Kevin Holland, he has a very good chance to knock out Reinier de Ridder if Reinier de Ridder does not adapt to Kevin Holland's style of striking and his unorthodox way that he strikes. So I can see Kevin Holland getting like a round 1 KO. And to be honest, I'm expecting Kevin Holland to hurt Reinier de Ridder on the feet. And that's what's gonna force Reinier de Ridder to grapple and eventually secure the submission victory. Next fight on the card, we have a fight in the UFC lightweight division between Renato Moicano versus Beneil Dariush. And if you guys don't already know, I released a whole video breaking down this fight. And my opinion on this fight is that I feel like this is going to be a layup matchup for Renato Moicano. I feel like Beneil Dariush, he took a lot of damage in his past couple of fights, and I just think Renato Moicano, he's surging through the lightweight division right now, and he's cementing himself to be a top contender in the lightweight division. So I don't think that Beneil Dariush, he has the skill sets to end the streak that Renato Moicano was on. Renato Moicano has the better grappling, and he has the better grappling defense as well. In the fights that Beneil Dariush does win, he implements his grappling a lot, and Renato Moicano, he has the right defense to effectively shut down Beneil Dariush's best skill set. And when you combine this with the fact that Renato Moicano, he is a good striker as well. I mentioned in the video that I did about this fight that Renato Moicano, he is not a flashy striker, but he is a very efficient striker, and his striking causes his opponents to take loads of damage. So basically, when you look at the matchup, Beneil Dariush, he's not going to be able to implement his grappling, and he's going to get overwhelmed in the striking as well. So when you look at those two aspects of the fight, I feel like Renato Moicano is a very safe pick, and that is why I am picking Renato Moicano to win by a round 2 TKO. Next fight on the card, we have a fight in the UFC light heavyweight division between Yuri Prochazka versus Jamal Hill. In this fight, I'll be picking Yuri Prochazka to win by a round 2 KO. And I'm gonna be honest, I think that Yuri Prochazka's unorthodox striking and dynamic movement is gonna get to Jamal Hill. And the reason I say this is because Jamal Hill has never fought any light heavyweight with the striking and the power of Yuri Prochazka. So I think this will be kind of similar to Yuri Prochazka when he fought Alexander Rakic, in the way that Jamal Hill, he's going to try and stay technical. He's going to try and stick to the fundamentals of MMA. But I think that Yuri Prochazka, he has the power in his hands that he can easily KO Jamal Hill, just catching them clean in like a weird striking sequence where Yuri Prochazka just comes up with a weird combination just on the spot. Kind of like what he did with his KO against Dominic Reyes. I can see him just landing on Jamal Hill's chin and knocking him out. In the past, I feel like I gave too much credit to Jamal Hill in terms of his striking defense. I've recently watched a lot of Jamal Hill's past fights, and I can say that he does keep his hands really low. And when you're dealing with a dynamic striker like Yuri Prochazka, you need to be ready for whatever comes your way. And Jamal Hill, the way that he keeps his hands sometimes, I don't think that he's going to be perpetually defensively sound when Yuri Prochazka is just chucking these weird combinations from these weird angles. But I can see Yuri Prochazka getting KO'd in this matchup. Jamal Hill, he is a dangerous striker as well. He has a lot of power in his hands. And Yuri Prochazka, let's be honest, he gets hurt basically every single fight that he's in. So I can see Yuri Prochazka getting hurt early and rallying back just like he did in the Alexander Rakic fight. But if Jamal Hill was able to just KO Yuri Prochazka out cold, then I do see this fight ending probably in the first round. But most likely, I think that Yuri Prochazka, he has the striking style to surprise Jamal Hill's defensive integrity. So that's really my main reason why I'm picking Yuri Prochazka to win by a KO in round 2. Next fight on the card, we have a title bout in the bantamweight division between Merab Dvalishvili versus Umar Nurmagomedov. And for this fight, I'll be picking Umar Nurmagomedov to win by a submission or a decision. Now, when people are analyzing this matchup, I feel like people are going way too deep into the analysis, and I feel like the outcome of this fight is going to be way more simple than most people think. The main aspects that are going to be going into this fight is that when you look at Merab Dvalishvili's fighting style, he is a high-paced wrestler with almost unlimited cardio, but the thing that he lacks is a finishing threat on the feet and on the ground. In other words, Merab Dvalishvili, he does not have insane KO power, and he does not have a insane submission ability like a Charles Oliveira on the ground. So basically, the only way that Merab is going to win this fight is by a decision, meaning that he's basically going to have to wrestle for 25 minutes. And when you're dealing with a fighter like Umar Nurmagomedov, who has insane jiu-jitsu and he has some power on the feet. Now, he's not constantly knocking opponents out like a Sean O'Malley or anyone like that, but Umar Nurmagomedov, he can sting you on the feet if he catches you clean. So Umar, he has way more of a higher chance of finishing this fight than Merab. And like I was saying before, when you have Merab, someone who's constantly going to be going to the ground, constantly is going to be trying to hold you down, and constantly is going to be shooting takedowns. Umar, he has that jiu-jitsu to win by submission. Remember, this fight is going to be basically 25 minutes of Umar trying to latch up a submission. Merab, he has no history of finishing fights, and Umar, he has the ability to finish fights through his jiu-jitsu. And when you look at this fight from the perspective of what's going to be happening in the striking, Umar Nurmagomedov, he is the better striker in this matchup, and he's going to be able to hurt Merab on the feet, and it's going to force Merab to make mistakes. So I can see Merab shooting a lot of desperate takedown attempts, sloppy takedown attempts, where Umar Nurmagomedov, he can like latch up a guillotine really quick and just finish the fight. So that is why I am picking Umar Nurmagomedov to either win by a submission or a dominant decision. Next, headlining the card for the main event, we have a lightweight title fight between Islam Makhachev versus Arman Tsarukyan. Now, unlike the Umar versus Merab fight, this fight right here, there is a lot of technicalities and little nuances going into this matchup to make it very hard to predict. But I've decided that I'll be picking Islam Makhachev to win by a decision. Now, when some people are analyzing this matchup, they think that this fight is gonna be like Colby Covington versus Kamaru Usman, where you have two dominant wrestlers whose wrestling cancels out, and the fight between those two fighters are going to take place mostly in the realm of striking. I disagree with that take, however, because Islam Makhachev and Arman Tsarukyan, their wrestling is so imbued into their game that they're always going to draw from that well to see if they can finish fights while being in their comfort zone. Kamaru Usman and Colby Covington, yeah, they were good wrestlers, but they weren't lethal wrestlers. Islam Makhachev and Arman Tsarukyan, these are lethal wrestlers who finish their fights through the wrestling. I think that it'll be stupid for either one of them to just try and strike with each other and not implement the wrestling. So I think that this fight is going to be showing all the different aspects of MMA. I think there's going to be some striking exchanges between these two fighters. I think that there is going to be a lot of scrambles, a lot of reversals, a lot of high level grappling and jiu-jitsu going on. I just think that this fight is going to be so hard to predict because it's going to be taking place in so many realms of the sport. Now, the reason why I am picking Islam Makhachev to beat Arman Tsarukyan by a decision is because I feel like Islam Makhachev's striking is going to be effective enough to win rounds through damage. And even if Islam gets controlled a lot of the fight, I can see him being able to cause enough damage to win rounds. Secondly, I mentioned Team Khabib in the beginning of this video, but I feel like since they fought Arman Tsarukyan before, they're going to have an amazing game plan to be prepared to beat Arman Tsarukyan at UFC 311. I also think that Islam Makhachev, he has the experience in high-level fights to be patient. A lot of people say that Arman Tsarukyan, he doesn't have KO power, and honestly, I don't see where they're coming from. Arman, he KO'd Beneil Dariush in his last fight, and he has hurt opponents before. I don't think that Arman Tsarukyan is this pillow-fisted grappler. Like, he is a dangerous high-level grappler that Islam Makhachev, he's going to have to approach with his utmost patience and utmost respect when they get into the octagon. Also, I think that Islam Makhachev, he has better cardio than Arman Tsarukyan, and he also has the ability to out-wrestle Arman Tsarukyan as well. Arman, he was out-wrestled by Gamrot, and I think that Islam Makhachev, he has enough experience fighting high-level elite lightweights in the UFC that he can try and pull off some of those same moments that Gamrot was able to do on Arman Tsarukyan. I think that if Khabib and his team are making a plan, they definitely are watching moments from Arman Tsarukyan versus Gamrot. But honestly, this fight is going to be one of the most technical fights in UFC history. There are going to be a lot of nuances and aspects going into this fight that could honestly just change the outcome of this fight entirely. I think the only way to really know who wins is just to wait till January 18th when this fight actually plays out. But anyways, like I said, I am picking Islam Makhachev to win by a decision, probably like a 48-47. This fight, in my opinion, is going to be a very close fight, and I think that it's going to come down to a specific round that a lot of people might find controversial to score to either fighter. But like I said, I think Islam Makhachev is going to win. And that is the conclusion of this video. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys made it to this far in the video, I just want to say I really appreciate it. And as usual, like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll catch you guys in my next video.